even pull down,
This meeting is being recorded.
maybe even pull down some of the presentations as well.
But sorry to interrupt, but do you guys make sure that Japan can connect now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I see Benjamin and Dr. Ikigami in.
Oh, great.
Okay, good. Okay. So continue on. We're going to try and put a little break in halfway through. We'd also like you to log into chat and kind of do a shout out with your name, what country you're from, and if you have a contact or a company name you want to include. Just do that in chat, as well as any questions you have as we go through, and we'll try and consolidate the questions and basically ask them, kind of lump them together and ask them one time instead of trying to ask a bunch of different questions. A little bit of the history. Hawaii has a long history in Otec, and our folks are going to talk about that. The Carter administration in the United States once proposed that we do Otec in the United States as one of our primary sources of power generation to get things cleaner. And as we go through our presentations today, you'll see why that didn't ever come to fruition. I think Dr. Ikigami has a good slide on that. There's two different kinds, basically floating Otec and also terrestrial or land-based Otec. And there's also closed cycle and open cycle, and our presenters will try and make some clarity on that. What I'd like to do is Ben Martin and Dr. Ikigami are both from Okinawa. They have two separate presentations. And what we'd like to do is I'd like to reserve Ben's for the end as kind of a wrap up, because he's actually operating a system, and I'd like to have him give his presentation and end us up with comments on how he thinks it would be applicable around the world as a baseload power generation for many countries, especially those around the equatorial zones and oceans that have deep enough water to get cold water. So if we could get Scott Glenn to start us off, we'll turn it over to Scott.
Aloha, Stan. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation to be here and to meet with folks. I'm really excited about this and really appreciate Renew Rebuild continuing to make a useful forum for folks to come together and share ideas, network, and get to know each other. And Dr. Kroc, I see you on the camera, so good to see you. Good to see you. I know you're one of the fathers of this technology and offshore and other types of approaches to Otec. I think we'll be meeting here in the near future as well. So I wanted to just open up with a couple of different thoughts, and maybe even a little gentle pushback on a comment that Stan just made, and some really good news for the state of Hawaii. So for those who weren't aware, yesterday was the first day in 150 years that Hawaii has not used coal for energy. This is a big milestone for us. We retired our last coal plant, and we are replacing it with a suite of renewable energy technologies, mainly solar and battery at the utility scale and home and business scale, also energy efficiency and other types of approaches. Unfortunately, those projects have been delayed due to global supply chain issues, the pandemic, and other things. So in the near term, we unfortunately will be burning some more oil to replace some of that coal energy. But you know, where we're headed is the right direction, and that's to move to renewable. And I want to point out the example of Kauai in particular, because Kauai is where we want the rest of the islands and really the rest of the world to get to. Kauai today is, during the daytime, 100% renewable energy, and overall 70%. So they're well ahead of the rest of the state of Hawaii and many other places around the world. But in moving to renewable energy, Kauai has also done two things. They now have the lowest electric rates in the state of Hawaii. They stabilized their rates, and now they're the lowest. And second, they've gone from having maybe mediocre reliability for their grid to now having the most reliable grid in the state. So they have shown that switching to renewables will make your grid more stable, more reliable, and your electric bill more stable and predictable for families and businesses. So we encourage others to look to the example of Kauai, as we ourselves are in the state. And in moving away from coal and other fossil fuel uses, one of the things that we're moving toward is a idea of a portfolio of renewable energy technologies where we're no longer relying on any one technology or power plant to be that 24/7 baseload power. That's not a feature of the grid that the 21st century grid is really relying on these days. It is important to have a variety of resources that provide their power at different times. Today, what we really are looking for is dispatchability and flexibility. And I think one of the things that we've been focused on a lot with Otec is its contribution to power and electricity needs. But I think there's also a lot of opportunities for Otec to contribute to our larger energy discussion and our larger clean energy economy discussion and decarbonization as well. And so I hope during today's discussion, we can also explore some of those themes too, and not solely look at what the electric grid might need and how Otec can provide for that. One of the really exciting things that's coming up beyond electricity, right, is transportation and the need for different types of fuels and means of moving around, both cars, planes, boats, trains. And some of that will be electricity, some of it will be fuels. And what we're seeing in Northern Europe and other places is the rise of what are called electrofuels, where you can use electricity and heat differential to create fuels from renewable resources that aren't necessarily biological. So that might be another opportunity for Otec to consider. And then in the longer term, I think we all are looking to hydrogen as being that energy carrier of the future. And I know, Stan, that's a personal passion for you. And so when we are able to finally get to that point where hydrogen can be a plug and play technology across all of our energy needs, then Otec can really plug in as well there. The last really exciting thing I wanted to mention is at NELHA, which I think most folks here are familiar with, but the Natural Energy Laboratory of Hawaii, which is based in Kona, they just completed a really exciting project. A company there had hooked up to the Otec machine, and they were pulling the CO2, the carbon dioxide, out of the ocean water as it was moving through the Otec facilities. And they were making bicarbonates with that CO2, with the idea that that could be an input into concrete and other types of building materials. But that's not the only thing you can do with that CO2. That CO2 you can also use as an input for algae to make pharmaceuticals or other types of products. So there's another economic development angle to how Otec can make it easier to do something that we all know the ocean really needs, which is effectively dialysis for the ocean. We got to pull that CO2 out of the ocean because ocean acidification is killing our coral and it's affecting our coral reefs and nearshore environments. And the more CO2 we can pull out of the ocean and not rely on it coming out the ground in the fossil fuels, the more quickly we can get to a clean energy economy and tackle our climate change issues. So this is another way that I could see Otec contributing in a larger economy of not only using that temperature differential of the ocean, but bringing the ocean closer to us so we can help pull some CO2 out of there in a more cost-effective way. Right now, it's very small scale, it's experimental, but that's how all of this starts. At the experimental level, prove it out, and then you grow it. So with that, I think I'd like to just wrap up, but there's a lot of potential with Otec, and we certainly want to support our partners and work with them both in Okinawa, Korea, Japan, and other places as well. Okinawa is Japan, but you know what I mean, and other places around the world. So thank you all very much for letting me just share these thoughts with you and look forward to the conversation. Thank you, Stan.
Thanks, Scott. We really appreciate you endorsing this program, and also thanks for the update. And we have I can't give away our presentations completely, but we have some other great presentations in there that talk about saltwater air conditioning and other uses of Otec as byproducts to help reduce electric consumption and things like that. So we'll leave that to our presenters, but thank you again for your time today. Next up is going to be Dr. Ikegami from Saga University. And Doctor, if you're ready, you can pull up your slides and take it away.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
So, aloha. Yeah. Thank you for giving a chance to the very honorable the presentation. Yeah. I'm very happy to present our activities. So, my presentation. So, Otec moment opportunities bring commercialization forward. So my presentation, Otec, Japan Otec activity, advance and activities. So recently, in the world, many what's the Otec project because Otec is a very improvement technology, and Otec has a very special characteristic, as you know well. So until now, Japan Otec team and Hawaii Otec team, we are very collaborating the annually meeting in the Kona and Hawaii, Kona and Kumejima. So we are very collaborating. So as you know well, in now actually using Otec plant is Hawaii and Japan. So we are promoting the megawatt class Otec. So together we can lead the world in the ocean renewable energy, provide our 24/7 commercialization forward. So as you know well, so after oil crisis, so many projects started in Otec, Hawaii and Nauru and Tokunoshima in Japan. This evaluation is 1980s. So Otec is technically feasible, but not economical. But recently dramatically changed this evaluation. Why changed? Its spotlight again due to technical improvement and change in social situation. So until now, Otec is this year. Technology is a success, but is not reached the commercialize. So, but we developed a new technology and with our collaboration. So I think this Otec, this position, we are waiting the next commercialization. Already we are technology and we are group. So we want to accelerate this next stage. So we can believe this stage. So from this meeting, I believe that this move to this commercialization. So recently, as you know well, many Otec projects in the world. This map is IEA, OES, International Energy Agency, Ocean Energy System is mapped, this one, led by Dr. Kim. So 10 years ago, only Japan and Hawaii, but recently this many small island area promoting. So in Japan, Otec plant is a demonstration success, world first Otec. So 100 kilowatt already connected Okinawa electric companies. So and connected post Otec deep sea water use project over 5 years continuous operating using actual sea water. So these technologies using advanced heat exchanger, new cycle system. So already we designed 1 megawatt and 10 megawatt Otec plant. So plate size is already for the commercialization. So next step, we are planning the 1 megawatt Otec. So in Japan now, Japanese government promoting 10 times deep sea water intake tube. From the last year, we started. This year, end of this fiscal year, complete the pre-feasibility study. After 10 times deep sea solar injection, we are planning the 1 megawatt Otec and deep sea solar application with Japanese company now nominate 1 megawatt promoting. So Otec has a scale merit. And by the way, small Otec is not economically. So large Otec very economical. So this is one characteristic, one characteristic. And this is only Otec cost estimated. But if we collaborate deep sea solar application, we can decrease the electric cost reduction with advanced deep sea solar use. So from now, we are introduce the international collaboration project. Recently, UN and UNIDO, promoting the Otec project. So CTCN opens the tender Otec pre-feasibility study in Nauru. So Japan team is adapt. So Nauru is very small island near the like Kumejima Island. So 40 years ago, Nauru challenged the Otec. So Nauru re-challenged the Otec for the promoting the Otec. If only solar power cannot difficult to the 100% renewable energy. So Nauru government challenged to the Otec, re-challenged the Otec supported by UN. So next Nauru project already finished the pre-feasibility study. Next step, GCF. GCF is a Global Climate Foundation. So this GCF is very huge foundation. So now we are prepare the medium project, 50 million US dollar to 250 million US dollars for the Nauru Otec project. Nauru Otec project not only electricity, and fresh water and food and deep sea application. So another international project is MORU, Mitsui OSK lines just started Mauritius 1 megawatt Otec project pre-feasibility studies within 1 year. So we after complete the pre-feasibility study, so we next step the implementation the 1 megawatt Otec and the desalination system and the deep sea solar. So additional information, Malaysia huge Otec potential, very huge Otec potential. So 3 years ago, Japan government started Malaysia project. So now we are promoting new Otec system, hybrid Otec system. So this hybrid Otec system, electricity and desalination water. Desalination water already realized in India. Otec already realized Kumejima. So as a one system, we want to realize the H-Otec system. Already complete the H-Otec system in Japan. Within this fiscal year, so we moved to the Malaysia. Then we are constructed implementation Malaysia model, like a Kumejima model, not only electricity. So additional information, IRENA this year holds a meeting, accelerating development of Otec in small island developing state meeting. So now small island in the world now very promoting the Otec. So I'm introduction the Otec in keynote lecture. So Palau, Bahama on the Mauritius, many small island very interested. So as I introduce on now Otec moment, so very be a chance move to the commercialization with international collaboration as Blue Innovation. Why not commercialize as a global leader in Hawaii? I've requested the Hawaii Next movement. Thank you for attention.
Dr. Ikigami, that was outstanding. And if you could stay on that one slide right there, I think this is one of the more important slides. This shows the kind of the sweet spot for Otec. It gives you the deep enough water to get the really cold water and the warmer surface temperatures. And also it kind of hovers around the equator where your weather systems are a little more stable. So your ocean going Otec systems have less problems with hurricanes and typhoons. So this is a really important, and if you can see on his earlier slide, it was similar. You could see where all of the test projects are and where all the potential projects are all lie in this area, and including up and down the east and west coast of Africa, all through Oceania and into the Caribbean and South America on the East Coast. So outstanding presentation, Dr. Ikigami, and thanks for pointing out too the potential, like Scott Glenn said, for desalinization, for use in aquaculture and other things. Really good job. Next, if Dr. Kim is ready, we'll put Dr. Kim up, and like I mentioned, I'd like to kind of hold Ben to the end, and we'll listen to Dr. Kim right now. So you may have to stop sharing your screen. There you go.
Hey, Stan, I'm not sure that Kim is online though.
Okay.
I've been trying to contact him, but I haven't been able to.
Okay. Well, in that case, Ben Martin, are you up to putting your slides up, and we'll put you in now then?
Sure, I can go now.
Okay.
He has a real good presentation too. Well.
So hello everyone, my name is Benjamin Martin with Genesis Inc. and we live in Okinawa. So the screen you see behind me, it's our mini Diamond Head. This is one of our beaches here on Kumijima, which is offshore of the Okinawa mainland. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing here on Kumijima, which is a small island about the population of Molokai, but a little bit much smaller as far as land area. So this is our 100 kilowatt demonstration facility. It was established in 2013 by the Okinawa Prefecture, which is kind of like a state government. And so then they started using the existing deep sea water intake line to demonstrate Otec generation, not just 24/7, but also autonomously. So this is a system that doesn't need somebody to be there all the time. It just operates automatically. And so we have quite a long operational data from this facility. And so in Japan, our roadmap is kind of similar to, I think, most places around the world, where we see, in the future, large scale offshore Otec being very economically attractive. It benefits from a very short intake pipeline, which makes it attractive. However, for the onshore Otec, although we need long intake pipelines, which are very expensive, there's a lot of other benefits, as has been mentioned already, that can offset that cost. And even though it's an investment, make very attractive, especially for small islands around the world. So we see kind of two markets in the future, where offshore Otec can help supply large islands and grids, and onshore Otec can also support economies and island development and kind of the circular economy that people are looking for right now. Otec has the benefit of deep sea water, which is a local resource that provides a resource for energy security, water security, energy savings, food and economic security, and environmental security. It's hitting all of the kind of the issues that people are finding right now with the the war going on, with the pandemic, and with the the anti-globalization from just all the challenges we're facing in the world right now. So this is something that can enable islands to meet their local needs, but also then have opportunities to trade and kind of connect with their regional allies. So Kumijima, we're located in this little dot here. So we have a small population of about 8,000 people with an average demand of about 5 megawatts. We're not connected to other grids, so it's an island grid. And so we need to, kind of work on our own. But on the other side, because we are an island grid, we are 95% diesel. We have some solar, but for the most part, we can't include more solar without storage without affecting the grid balance. So it's a challenge for us to increase more renewable energy. One thing we do have is deep sea water. So because we have a pipe that was installed in 2000, we can bring up 13,000 tons per day. That's about 1/10 of the size of the water available at Melha. But we use this water in a variety of ways, mostly for agriculture. So we can produce prawns, we can produce sea plants, we can produce salt water and cosmetics. So these have become a very important use for us here on Kamijima. Around Japan, actually, there are 15 sites throughout Japan that you have access to deep sea water. And so there's a whole variety of industries and uses that have grown up over the past 20, 30 years from Hawaii's initial demonstration. And so there's uses for the nutrients, there's uses for the cleanliness of deep sea waters, and there's use for the cold. And these can be used for everything from mineral extraction through power generation, which is something we're doing here on Kamijima. For this small island, again, about the population of Molokai, we have an annual revenue of about $30 million per year, which is huge. All of our land is mostly sugarcane, and sugarcane only produces about $10 million a year. So it's almost 3 times more revenue from one single small industry than from all of the other land use that's going on. It also creates lots of jobs. There's more than 300 jobs related to Dow Industries. So for us, it's a critical part of the local economy, but it's also something where there's potential for growth if we have more resources, which means new water. And so our perspective is we need more clean energy, we need more water. So we are working to integrate Otec and these different industries right now at a small scale so that we can use the water multiple times and increase our benefits from the existing resource. However, there is demand to expand in more available areas. So since 2010, Kamijima has implemented studies towards expanding the intake, getting more water and increasing what we can do with the same amount of water we have. And then with that, also looking at our responsibilities towards the global kind of environment and going green and creating renewable energy. So Kamijima Town announced that they want to be 100% renewable energy back in 2008, and then 2018, and then in 2020 they did an energy vision, a policy kind of looking at how do we get there. And so for their view, they want to do 1 megawatt onshore Otec as a first step to get us about 20% of the renewable energy we need, and then a further 5 megawatts to get us to about 100% with renewable energy such as solar storage and maybe EVs. And so that's their goal, is by about 2040 we can go 100% renewable energy through Otec and solar and related technologies. And that's what we're working towards now on Kamijima. As Professor Gigami showed, this is our kind of estimate for Otec growth and how the economies of scale will work on it. But we really see, connecting the different industries we have right now can dramatically reduce the cost of onshore Otec. So our perspective is using deep sea water as its own resource, its own industry. Think about Otec just on its own. If Otec can use the water, produce power, it becomes a power generation business off on its own. And so that can be a really attractive power generation cost, even at the small scale, which is really a paradigm shift for small island countries where they're importing oil, they're importing diesel fuel, where now they can just create it all on their own and that money stays locally. So for Hawaii, as many of you know, Melha provides a great resource for Hawaii in terms of research and development, and they've really grown their aquaculture, and the amount of economic impact from Melha is quite large for Hawaii as well. There was a research done that shows that more than $100 million of revenue is added to Hawaii's economy from Melha. And so while onshore Otec is a little bit of a challenge there because of the different rules and things that are existing, there's a great opportunity likely for offshore Otec in Hawaii. And even at the 10 megawatt, the first offshore type scale that might be put in, we're looking at power generation cost of about 20 cents per kilowatt hour, which, while expensive, with Oahu right now, with power generation costs of 32 cents or more, I think we're looking at even higher costs more recently. It's even attractive even at this early stage. but it also opens the power opportunity for all these other uses, such as food production, agriculture, and all the things that are going on at Nelha, but also increasing scale or diversifying. So, connecting to around the world, Otec from Hawaii's initial use in the 1980s, it's grown. And I think more than most of you realize is that there are now at least 38 sites with about 45 pipes around the world, including Korea, Taiwan, India, Japan, and Nelha, and also French Polynesia with new pipes we were just put in last year in French Polynesia for a hospital to cool the hospital with in an economically friendly, environmentally friendly way. So this is something that's growing and becoming ever more necessary, but we also need to more quickly bring forward the Otec technologies that can help enable these and also expand our renewable energy portfolio. So this is just a really quick introduction to what we're doing here on Kumijima and what we kind of see going forward. But I'd happy to answer questions, and I have a few more slides that I can bring up to those specific questions later. So
yeah, Ben, thank you very much for the presentation. I had a question from the chat, and it kind of leads me to the scalability piece here. The question was, at what point can we start producing like hydrogen electrolysis using Otec? And I think they kind of go hand in hand with the scalability issue. These projects require a large upfront investment, but it is a good investment because once you get it to scale, your return on investment is actually really good. But it's hard a lot of times to get initial investments because it is a large investment. Could you kind of expand on that a little bit? And also, could you give us just a really short version of the Rankine cycle or the actual, how does a water temperature give you electricity?
Sure. So for the electrolysis one, there hasn't been a major advancement in electrolysis technology that I'm aware of. So unless there's a major breakthrough in that, it'll be hard to bring down the cost, except aside from going to scale or by either reducing the electricity cost and the water cost. So one way we can do that is scaling up, creating cheap Otec power. And so that will allow us to do that at small scale. Sagi University has a flash desalination demonstration satellite here on Kumijima, and they do have a small scale hydrogen demonstrator. So the idea behind that is using post Otec water for cheap, low maintenance, clean water. And so that distilled water can then be used in Otec more easily because it is distilled. There's, it wouldn't be as easy to drink. You'd have to add minerals back in, but to go straight into then a fuel cell and electrolyzer. But the general technology in electrolyzers hasn't really changed. So that's expensive and it requires electricity. But if the electricity is cheaper, the water is cheaper, that can be one thing that can bring this forward more quickly. Then the other one you were asking about, just
yeah, well, you're pulling that slide up, and it is, working with hydrogen, the biggest cost is the electricity. So if you can get your electric costs down, like you say, to between 2 and 10 cents a kilowatt hour, now all of a sudden hydrogen becomes a very economical option.
Sorry, what was the second question?
Well, on the Rankine cycle, the actual process of producing electricity with Otec.
I had a slide in my deck and I took it out. Let me grab one.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I think some people are probably familiar with it, but I don't know that everybody is, and it'd be good to get a quick primer. Otherwise, we have to go to Dr. Kroc and he'll give us the long version because he's a professor. He can't give a short version. He's going to give
all
us
of
the
our
long
experts
version.
here today, I expected them to share, so I took my slide out. But Otec, we're working with closed cycle Otec. Dr. Vega will probably talk about open cycle, where ours, because open cycle has a very large diameter turbine, because the pressure is low, it can create very large scale facilities. So for especially onshore and in the future, in Japan we focus on small scale on closed cycle because it's more compact. And so what we do is we have a low boiling point working fluid. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, and the surface seawater is only about 30 degrees Celsius. Sorry for those in the United States, I've forgotten how to switch to Fahrenheit. Yeah, it's a low boiling point working fluid, like your refrigerator or your air conditioner. It uses something like a refrigerant, which has a low boiling point. So if we put that in a heat exchanger, it is warmed from the surface seawater flowing through. That liquid turns to a vapor. The vapor expands to a turbine, just like a steam engine, and creates power. And it's rotating power. So that's another big benefit of Otec, is that because it's rotating, it helps support the grid, and it's really important for pushing that electricity through grids. And so that's something that solar power can't do on its own. And that's one technology I think that will really help, especially for small islands, in increasing renewable energy by providing that support. So after the vapor leaves the turbine, it enters the condenser, which is another heat exchanger with deep sea water, which is cold, flowing through it. That vapor is condensed back into a liquid, and once it's in a liquid, it can be reused. So we have this continuous cycle where the working fluid is going around and around in the Otec facility. But as the water goes through, it doesn't change, except for the temperature. So in the surface seawater case, if it comes in at about maybe 30 degrees Celsius, or maybe like 86 degrees Fahrenheit, it's cooled about 5 degrees Celsius, or maybe as much as 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that water is cooled, and it can be reused in other industries like fisheries, such as prawn development and things like that. And it has a benefit of where in the summer, if the water is very warm and can't be used, then post-Otec water becomes very attractive for temperature stabilization and uses like that. On the other side, deep sea water is warmed. So cold deep sea water is very useful because it's clean, it's safe to use for agriculture and aquaculture. But if it's very cold, then it can have negative effects on aquaculture, such as making things that are alive cold. They won't eat as much, and so they'll take longer to grow. But if we have warmer deep sea water, that can be really useful for some aquaculture industries. So there's a lot of benefits in connecting these. And that's something we've done in Japan, is we actually have pipes that take our post-Otec water and connect them to the actual industries so that they can use them. It's on a small scale, but this is something we see for small islands in a kind of a niche case. And Dr. Vega will probably talk about how if we want to go big and get really cheap energy, we'll have to go offshore, which we agree is going to be a major market for Otec in the future. As we get there, we're working on the small scale.
Great, thank you very much. And just to clarify then, when you're using the system, you're generating AC electricity with that spinning generator, correct?
It depends on the power conditioners we connect, but you can do pretty much anything you need. But yeah, it's creating the
as opposed to solar panels and wind turbines. Well, solar panels specifically, they give you DC power. This gives you the option, right? You can do both. Terrific. Can use the DC for the electrolyzer and AC for putting it on the grid. Were we able to get Dr. Kim up?
I don't think so, but I do have his PDF version of his slides, and I could show them because at least the last few ones are really interesting.
Okay.
You want me to do that?
Yes, Dr. Vega, can you combine yours and his, do both presentations?
No, but let me first just be easy to just kind of try to find his and wait.
Okay.
Oh no, his PDF. Oh, where are you?
We'll look through the chat for any other questions.
Okay. Oops.
Oh, there was a comment about my comment about the equator. You generally find a little bit more stable weather conditions right along the equator. So you get less high energy weather phenomenon. Usually you have to have a big temperature differential to get that kind of weather, like typhoons and cyclones and hurricanes. You generally have more in the doldrums. You have less, I'd say, radical. You may have more rain, but you usually have less radical and powerful storms to damage your system. So if you have ocean-based Otec, then you can have a more stable platform, and it lasts a lot longer. I learned that from Dr. Hans Brock, so I see him shaking his head up and down, so I know it must be true. And Dr. Kroc, I interviewed on a Think Tech panel, was one of my earliest shows back in 2015, and I learned a lot from him on that show. And then I went and rewatched the show and learned even more. So thank you for your participation today, Dr. Kroc.
If you want to, you can get me share the screen. I think I have it.
Yes, you're up.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm my dear friend, Dr. Kim, and I'm terribly sorry he's not able to participate. I don't know what happened. He's been in touch, and he sent me this yesterday, actually. And you and I, somebody asked if they could get copies, and of course you can get copies of all the slides. Come on. What is
Is this a
going on here?
PDF?
Yeah.
Just maybe use the scroll bar to the right and just scroll down.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry. Okay, so what he likes to do is he shows here the past, all the different experimental plans that we had, and I'm getting so old. I've been able to participate in most of these. Actually, the first time I heard about Otec was for the mini Otec in 1979. I was actually working in a different aspect for Lockheed Martin. I was working in ocean mining, but I was aware of that project, and it was really successful, actually. And then there was the Otec 1 project. That was my first actual visit to Hawaii. I'm talking about the US ones. And then we have I ran the 250 kilowatt open cycle for 5 years. And then we did a 50 kilowatt actually using the turbine from the mini Otec. And then this shows the different projects going on in Japan that has been also already shown by my dear friend from Japan and Okinawa. And by the way, isn't Benjamin Martin awesome? He's actually from a landlocked state from Arizona. And look at the guy. He's a seaside sailor now. And the one that is a shame that he's not here, but Dr. Kim, with funding from his government, actually designed a 1 megawatt Otec plant for Kiribati. It was going to be a donation, foreign aid. And right before the pandemic, he managed to test it right off South Korea, where they don't have Otec resource, but he was able to get to 338 kilowatt, and he beat my record, my team's record. But the plant can actually produce up to 1,000 once it is in Kiribati. But then, since the pandemic, unfortunately, what happened is that because his budget was really sitting on the bank for 2 years, the government took it back for other purposes, and now he's trying to get his money back to be able to deploy this plant in Kiribati. And then he likes to show this diagram that you've seen before, and I'm actually going to talk about it in detail during the next presentation. Oops. And then here he shows a lot of data. It's hard to go through, but showing the different prices for the different systems, comparing wave to tidal to Otec. And of course, Otec comes ahead because it's 24/7 what tidal and wave is not. And then he likes to show the economy of scale, really. And I will talk about that later, so let me skip that. And here he talks about how he would like to proceed. And fortunately for South Korea, like in the case of Japan, they do have industry involved and really providing a lot of support and advice to these developers with government funding. But that's what he's trying to look into. One important thing is that currently, at least in the US, we don't get credit for not releasing CO2. And just to give you an idea, the plant that Scotland just mentioned, that they stopped producing electricity using coal here in Hawaii just yesterday, I guess. And for every kilowatt hour, they were releasing 1 kilogram of CO2 into the atmosphere, or 1,000 grams, 1 kilogram. If you use diesel fuel, it's about 3/4 of that. If you use natural gas, it's about half of that, or half a kilogram per kilowatt hour. And it would be lovely for us to get somehow credit for not releasing any CO2 into the atmosphere. And that just shows the small plant that he operated with his students, Dr. Kim in Korea. They did some wonderful experimentation, and they managed to select the right equipment for the next one. That is this one here, the 1 megawatt Otec barge that they tested off the coastline there. Actually, I was there, and it was really successful. And the beauty for them is that the bulk of the equipment is manufactured in South Korea. And this just shows the idea how to move beyond these small plants for small islands. And now the specific site in Kiribati and Tarawa. And I hope that he gets his funding back from the government to be able to install the 1 megawatt plant that will make a hell of a difference there. That's another idea that they have, trying to move forward. And that was his presentation, although I did it in 5 seconds. Do you want me to proceed now to what I would like to do?
Let's talk a little bit about his presentation too, and this slide in particular. He told me that when he gets his funding back for Kiribati, it will actually be onshore versus floating, although it was designed for floating because he's going to be doing desalinization, and this slide shows the desalinization piece as well, correct?
Yeah, but actually, yeah, just to correct that a little bit, it had to do with a budget gimmick, basically.
Okay.
The plan was designed really to be land-based in Tarawa, but
Okay.
his government wanted to show that it works. So what he chose to do, smart man, he put the power block on a barge and used a vertical pipe, high-density polyethylene pipe that they once used at NELH, and he tested that off the coastline of South Korea. And then he was going to he took the barge back, and then he was going to basically told the barge to Tarawa, I hate to use the word, but beach it, and then install a pipeline that will go down to the right depth. So it would be like, imagine what is going on at NELH for people from Hawaii, that you get the water from NELH and then you test your Otec plant on land, for example. So he was going to do that, but all along was supposed to be land-based in Kiribati. That was always the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, my main point there is that a lot of the low islands, the dry islands in Oceania, they need fresh water as well.
Oh, yes,
and
yes,
so
yes.
the desalinization piece is something that I think is important, that pairs up really well with Otec.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, if you want to run into your presentation.
Yeah, let me see if I do this right now. Can you actually see my screen?
We still have Dr. Kim's view up now.
Oh,
you have
sorry.
to select your.
Your screen sharing is this. Let me just stop share and then start again, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it, huh? Now can you
Yeah,
see it? Okay.
It'll probably take a second or two to come up.
You have it now?
No. Did you select the image on your computer that you want to show?
Yeah. I have it right now in front of me.
And hit share again.
Oh, but I have to go back to Zoom. Where are you, Zoom here? For some reason, I cannot go back to that. This is so embarrassing. Oh, share screen here.
There you go.
Too many windows. But you cannot see my stuff, can you?
It usually takes a couple seconds to come up, but we don't have it yet.
How about now? Do you have it?
No.
This is embarrassing. I wanted to show his, but not mine. Huh?
So if you select your, it should have what's on your desktop. You have to select your slides and then go to share again.
Share screen. How about now? Oh, here we go. Okay. Go ahead.
There we go. It's coming now. Okay, you're up.
Okay. You have the, oh, you have the
Yes,
first one. Right?
we got it.
Okay. Now, what I would like to emphasize is that our friends have, my dear friends have spoken so far, including Dr. Kim, really on a specific developments for small islands. And let me perhaps backtrack a bit. For a long time, God, almost 30 years, we have known that there are 99 sites throughout the world that could use the ocean thermal energy to produce electricity and desalinated water. Of those, about something like 55 are islands, and I'm including Hawaii there separately from the mainland USA, and the others, the other 44 are actually continental nations, like Mexico, for example, or Brazil. And my friends in Japan and Korea are really concentrating on the island states as the entry, the small island developing states. And part of the reason really is because you can get a really substantial loan with really wonderful interest rates and terms from the Asian Development Bank, from the World Bank. But unfortunately, they only will give you the loan if you are small island nation, developing state. If you want to buy the second of a kind, they will never sponsor the first one. So that's a big challenge. So I'm glad that South Korea and Japan, with their own funding, are trying to move us forward. Can you see my next slide? Oh, come on, man.
That hasn't changed yet.
Doesn't want to advance for me. This is so embarrassing. Let me try to open it again. I'm terribly sorry.
No
Ask me
problem.
questions. Ask me questions.
I can, we had one other question come up about desalinization. Our last forum that we had on Renewrebuild Hawaii was with Canary Islands, and that was exclusively about desalinization. And
Yes.
the way they handled the desalinization in their system is they did distributed systems. So they don't have any large desal plants. They have a bunch of small desal plants, and they spread the distribution back into the ocean across a wide area. So there's very few issues with what they call the brine going back into the ocean after desal. So it looks like Dr. Vega got his slides up.
Can you see them really?
Yes, we're ready to go.
But I cannot advance though, damn it. Oh, this is so embarrassing.
On the bottom, there's a little movie screen looking thing next to the very bottom there. Try click that one. Yeah, you had your arrow on it to the right some more. More, all the way over, one more. There.
When I was working, you're gonna embarrass me. You've done this
No,
before, huh? No,
A
that's an
little bit.
advance though. Oh, it advances, okay. So I am going to, it's okay, I will stay there. I'm going to concentrate then and all the other sides. And let me give you the bottom line. What I'm talking about worldwide implementation, not just for small island developing states. But what we concluded quite a while ago is that we must first design and operate a pre-commercial plant ship. Like I hope I will get to show you, we have concluded that for a plant ship producing electricity and even desalinated water, you need to get to the 50 to 100 megawatt plant size. And just to give you an idea, if you're not an engineer, for example, Oahu will have to have 10 100 megawatt plants to be able to cover their needs, all of their needs, okay, for example. So I'm going to concentrate on that. And then what do I need to do? And this is the biggest challenge that hasn't changed since President Carter was president. We need to secure in the order of $500 million to be able to do this. And I'm almost convinced that it will have to be done by some kind of shared government grant. The EU with Japan, with South Korea, with Malaysia was interested to the USA, question mark, because I don't know that's going to work out. Another possibility nowadays, we all talk about angel financing and trying to find the Bill Gates of the world that will be willing to save the world by sponsoring Otec. That's dreaming. And the last one that really scared me, and I would tell you later why, is that China being a centralized government, not too democratic, but independent of politics, if the Politburo decides that Otec is in the future, they will do it. And that would be the end of the discussion, and I would have to clap for them, I guess. I hate to say that. Now, let me give you a bottom line here, okay? This is for Otec worldwide, what we already have learned. We don't need to learn again. The technical question, we have shown the baseload generation, meaning we can produce a certain amount 24/7. But because the ocean temperature varies, we also have a variable output available. So unlike photovoltaics or wind, we produce all the time, but it's not a constant value. It varies with conditions in the ocean. But through the experimental plans, we have learned to develop what we call the control parameters, so we can control the system up to a point. Now, we have learned a lot with these Otec experimental plans, like my friends showed before, and also really from the offshore petroleum engineering people, because they know how to deploy pipelines, how to deploy and moor platforms, and so on and so forth. So as far as I'm concerned, the only technical issue that remains is really to go through the process of designing the actual plant, the 5 megawatt, I hope. And what is really important is what we call, engineers call OMR&R, operation, maintenance, repair and replacement. So when you come out with the capital cost and the cost of electricity production over the plant life, you have to also account for how much you're going to need to operate a plant, how much to manage the plant, to repair things, and to replace. For example, if we use titanium heat exchangers, we know that will last us more than 30 years, probably 50 years. But the aluminum heat exchangers might last you 15 years. So maybe what you do, and they're cheaper, less expensive. So maybe you should use aluminum heat exchangers and then plan to replace them every 15 years, for example. So you have to do that. Now, I think that has been demonstrated over and over that we need to get to sizes bigger or equal to 50 megawatt to be able to really be commercial. And most of these nations that are situations as large as Hawaii, for example, not Kiribati. But one thing I would like to emphasize here is that it's really important that I myself was guilty of this. When I first got started with Otec, I was really excited about deep ocean water aquaculture. And of course, the flagship and a wonderful place to work at is NELH. But please keep in mind that NELH has the equivalent of the amount of water that will require to operate roughly a 1 megawatt plant. Okay, 1 megawatt plant, like the size in Kiribati. But to be able to use that water to actually do horticulture, I will need 25 city blocks of ponds, because you have to keep the water where it gets sunshine, meaning above the photic layer. And to do that when you have a floating plant is almost impossible. So I think that deep ocean water aquaculture works beautiful, like in Okinawa, because it's a small plant with water that they can use. But if I go to 10, 50, 100 megawatt, I would have way too much water. So I would say, think of deep ocean water aquaculture uncoupled for the Otec that I looked at for worldwide application. And for the seawater air conditioning, for example, Waikiki, for the hotels, we have an installed capacity of like 25 megawatt just for the 30,000 hotel rooms. And the amount of water I could pump just with a pump from let's say 700 meters depth would be like 7 degrees Celsius, what I need to be able to have pre-chillers and run all the ACs through Waikiki. But how would I be able to do that and put all the pipes that I need to access all the hotels and what have you? Has been tried by many well-meaning people, but didn't get that far. So once more, the amount of water that I could use for a 2.5 megawatt Otec plant, all of that water would be what I need to maintain the tourists in Waikiki happy. Then you see that it's uncoupled from the 100 megawatt plant with way too much water. So when I think about the future plant ships floating offshore, I really uncouple myself on seawater air conditioning and for deep ocean water aquaculture. Not to say that that's not valuable, but I'm looking into worldwide applications. And another question really is, how do you minimize the financial risks? Now, we don't have plans out there, enough plans to be able to monitor what might happen, right? But what we do have, thanks to Professor Niels, and I will talk about it in a second, we know theoretically how many plants we could install through the Otec region. And we're talking about in the order of 5 terawatt of plants as a minimum that we could install. And apparently, according to computer models, we wouldn't really be that detrimental to the environment, because we would change the distribution of temperatures in the ocean. Now, just in case that you're not an engineer, for the whole world, the primary energy that we use is 18 terawatts. You know how much, power, you know how much energy you have to multiply by the number of hours in the year, right? And then in the case of, we're talking about 5 terawatt for Otec, for example. But please keep in mind that primary energy, for example, includes the energy contained in a barrel of fuel. But as you know, only 30% of that is converted to electricity. So if the 18 terawatt includes something like the fossil fuels, if you were to somehow match and make all the electricity without fossil fuel, we'd only be about 14, 15 terawatt, just to keep things in perspective. Now, how about the political issue? I am convinced that we need government, angel, patient, and I call it pension financing, because if you give me the funds to do this, me or whoever, there are many people qualified to do this, some are here right now on the screen, would take me about 5 years to begin to produce electricity. So you have to be patient. You have to wait 5 years. That's how long it takes to order the components, to install the components, so on and so forth. And now I think that the first commercial plant sheet that will be equal to 50 or higher megawatt will take 5 years to be operational after the pre-commercial plant. Just to keep things in perspective, Oahu is equivalent to 10 100 megawatt plants. Now, this is one my dear colleague and friend for many years. Of course, he had to be French. Dr. Gerard Niels, formerly from UH. We were kind of required by our Department of Energy to use this terminology. Theoretical resource refers to what is the source of energy. In this case, is the temperature differential between 20 meters and 1,000 meters. The technical resource is how many kilowatt hour you can produce. And then what they call the practical resource, not shown here, means where could you actually deploy this plant? Because, for example, I couldn't deploy one if there's an area that is protected for marine mammals, for example. So I'm going to talk about the theoretical resource. And this is what Gerard did. He took information from the World Atlas, and then he's showing you in there, coordinated to color, the annual average of the delta T. And just think that the redder it is, the better off you are. For example, one thing that is really amazing to me is that we're here. Oh, you can see can you see my arrow? Anyhow, with your eyes already go to bummer, I cannot show you that. You can see that Hawaii is really in a, why I cannot show the arrow?
Your arrow shows up on the screen.
Oh, let me get the laser pointer. Okay, here you go. See, if you go around here, you go around here to Hawaii. We're actually in the margins of the excellent hotel resource. A wonderful place to work would be off Brazil because they have the right temperature. There are no hurricanes in there. And on top of that, they have a lot of oil. So one time I thought about combining Otec with oil production to be able to implement Otec. They know there's a lot of energy right off Mexico, for example. And then if you move, I will say the rest later, okay? And then let me go to the technical. So what Gerard did is working together, we came out with a 100 megawatt plant, and then we deployed this plant. Gerard divided the world, the ocean resource, the Otec resource, into 25 kilometers by 25 kilometers squares. And right in the middle, he put an Otec plant, a 100 megawatt Otec plant. 100 megawatt is when you get a delta T of 20 degrees Celsius, okay? And I show you there how much energy, gigawatt hour you produce per year. And then you can see how it varies throughout all the different regions. But now what I wanted to show you is this, because I mentioned to you before, this is, I just 10 minutes ago, I went to Gerard's webpage and I looked roughly an area that is right off Oahu. And that shows you what will be the monthly average of the energy produced by this Otec plant throughout the year. And I'm showing that because showing that in February, for example, that'd be the lowest that I produce. So if I were the power company, I would say, okay, I'm willing to say that you are baseline this number and the rest is intermittent as far as I'm concerned. So I might have to negotiate a two-tier contract. One, they pay me for this amount at a certain rate, and they pay me a lower rate probably for the so-called fluctuating amount. So we have to be something like that. It's a new concept in a way. But what I wanted to do now for a while is the following. When I talk here about the new perspective, when I first began to work in Otec, I looked at the longest submarine power cable so I could tie my plant ship to land. And I came between 10 and 20 kilometers that I could assume. And that was really between Sicily and Italy by Pirelli. So when I began to look into Hawaii, I tried to put plants around Hawaii. I wanted to be between 10 to 20 kilometers. But what has happened now, almost 40 years later, and this is what I'm trying to write here, and I'm trying to use my Naval Academy experience here. As you know, a degree of latitude has 60 minutes, and each minute is 1 nautical mile. Think about it that way, okay? So what is going on right now in this crazy world of ours, the British are trying to put a huge farm with wind and PV right in Morocco, and they're going to ship the electricity by submarine power cable all the way to England. The amount they're going to be installing is equivalent to 10 times Hawaii, 10 times Oahu, sorry, okay? And likewise, Australian company is going to put photovoltaics here, twice as big as the one in Morocco, and it's going to ship it by submarine power cable all the way to Singapore right here. and then after Indonesia, and Singapore. So all of a sudden, what this hit me really hard is that, oh my Lord, look at that. Look at this huge resource. And now that I have these power cables, I can go 30 degrees. So this is 30 degrees, right? From here to there. Look at that distance. So I can go now from here to China. So if China were to consider this, they could get the Politburo to approve Otec, and the next thing you know, they will be deploying Otec plants with these long distance submarine power cables that are now available and be able to support their needs. So that to me is really, really interesting. In the case of ourselves, perhaps we can go all the way from Mexico or from the Gulf to the mainland. And keep in mind that we have, for example, a land cable that goes from the state of Washington all the way to Los Angeles. Brazil breaks the record. They have a cable that goes from the Amazon region all the way to the coastline, which is the longest one in the world right now. So things are happening that will allow us to deploy Otec throughout the region and supply the electricity to all the places. Now, where is that we are now? What is the status of 2022? Right now, the arrow is supposed to mean time there. Right now, we have a lot of technical, environmental, economic reports. We have some beautiful demonstrations of seawater air conditioning, deep ocean water aquaculture. You've seen those. We had experimental Otec plants of less than 250 kilowatt or 0.25 megawatt. And then Dr. Kim, that unfortunately is not here today, is going to deploy his 1 megawatt plant in Kiribati. So that's where we are at now. That is, we know that those systems work already. But how do we get to the future, right? So in the future is that my hope, at least, is we have thousands of megawatt-sized Otec plants worldwide. Now, one thing I wanted to show you, this is something that I actually did in 1992, my Lord. I was not even a father. Now I'm a father and grandfather. I looked at all the data available, some of mine, but all my colleagues, and I plotted this, and I realized what we engineers call economy of scale. And I'm glad to see that all the presentations before me are using this, and I was really the first fool to notice that, or at least to document that. But this scale showed the capital cost, how much you have to pay. And this shows in here what would be the cost for each plant, right? So for the 100 megawatt plant, you get to this number here, almost 10,000. The 50 you are here, but the small plants like you heard before from our presenters, they're pretty expensive. Now, if you look at a fossil fuel plant, they're way down here, like a 2,000, 3,000. So to begin with, no matter what you do, the capital cost is going to be more for Otec than for a fossil fuel plant. Okay? So we have to make it up because we don't have to pay for the fuel. Now, the last time I updated this was in 2009, and I basically gave up. One thing that I learned showing this, because I tried to work with offshore companies, oil companies, for example, of Brazil, and is that they check my numbers, and when I did this with them like almost 10 years ago, and they agree with this plot that I have here. But when they show me what they were going to do, it was almost 50, 60% more than the capital estimate that I had. And the reason was that because the payback period in 3, 4, 5 years for offshore oil, they whenever they have the first of a kind of anything, they always come out with a budget that is 50% higher just in case. They have learned through the years that's a good idea to have the money in the bank just in case. So they say, Luis, we agree with your numbers, but to get started, we need to have our company give us 1.5 times that budget. That was a funny lesson that I learned. Now, the next important issue is the issue of the levelized cost of electricity. But that what we mean is, I learned that from APRI, the Energy Electrical Power Research Institute in Palo Alto, that works for all the utilities. And basically, to come up with the cost of electricity in dollars per kilowatt hour, you pay what, 30 cents, whatever you pay here in Oahu. Is the capital cost, so the loan, I have to pay for the loan, right? Like buying a house or a car, I have to pay for the loan, and I pay for each kilowatt. I have to charge for each kilowatt hour that I sell a certain amount to pay for the loan. And then I have to also charge to be able to operate the plant, maintain the plant, repair and replace the plant. And I'm not including any credits, okay? And now this thing here hasn't changed. So I feel that to get below 20 cents in my 2009 numbers, I needed to be out here at a 50, 100 megawatt plant. I don't think I can do it with a 10 megawatt plant. But what is really important, and forget it with a 1 megawatt plant, but what is really important is that the blue one is a commercial loan at the time was 8%, 15 years. And this plan was a so-called concessionary loan that is only 2.5, 20 years. it shows that the long terms are really important in trying to estimate the cost of electricity. So once more, how do we get to the pre-commercial phase? My dream of having a 5 megawatt plant ship that we all can share. To be able to get to what Gerard News is telling me, he can put 50,100 megawatt plants throughout the Otec region, okay? And that would be many decades from now, unfortunately. How do we get there? Right now, we have, thanks to Ikegami, Kim, not Ikegami, since Ikegami soon, thanks to Kim, we have a 1 megawatt plant that's going to go into Kiribati. And then, so I want to have, I hope a few more, like was described by Dr. Ikegami, Professor Ikegami, a few more in the next 5 to 10 years. But at one time I was excited that the EU and France would participate, but they for some reason that project was canceled for Martinique. So now we only have, as far as I know, only Japan and Korea are actually putting money into trying to do 1 megawatt plants for small island development states. Another idea that really worked beautiful of Brazil is that if I can, in Brazil right now, they have a lot of petroleum and real deep waters, but they are not allowed to produce their own electricity. They need the electricity to run their compressors, for example, so that there will be, I will install an Otec plant that will be close to the offshore platforms, plant ships, sorry, and I will run their FPSO. FPSO means floating petroleum storage and offloading. So they store the product to be shipped to land eventually. That they also will provide the electricity that they need. And we were working on that, but political situation wasn't really convenient in Brazil at the time. So my dream with the star there is the 5 megawatt pre-commercial plant ship. I'm open to whether it would be closed cycle or open cycle. But the issues here, this footnote, where do I get the money that we need to do it? That is the big challenge. Now, one thing that's really important, when Lockheed Martin was working in an idea for the US Navy for an Otec plant right off Oahu here, with some brilliant students at UH, we work in numerical models to be able to find out whether or not the return water from Otec will end up being below the 40th layer, because you need to be in the 40th layer to really have the primary producers. And the definition is about 1% of the surface light. When you get to that depth, you are below the 40th layer, and it's about 120 meters roughly throughout Hawaii. And also important because at one point, talking to the environmental permitting agency, they gave us a list of 4 pages of all the parameters that we needed to monitor. But what these bright students figured out is that by monitoring the parameters listed there, chlorophyll A, temperature, salinity, oxygen, pH, and dissolved inorganic carbon, by doing that, you will be able to really monitor if the water has changed substantially. That was really important, I thought. So going back to the future is that one day I hope we will have about 50,000 at least 100 megawatt plant ships throughout. Now, one thing I would like to point out to you, because unfortunately through the year, this happens to be a design that I did with another company for a 50 megawatt closed cycle Otec, okay? And there I'm trying to show the cost of each major component, because Otec is like a car, it has many components and you need to consider each one of those. So for example, if this means heat exchangers, it's a large cost, about 20% for a closed cycle plant, but the turbine generator's rating is only like 7%. In the case of open cycle, would be the reverse, basically. The heat exchangers are really inexpensive, while the turbine generators will be that much more expensive. And then for the open cycle, we need more space, the plant ship will be more expensive too. But we know those things. And now some people ask me, how can you survive when our Otec plant ship? And I show them, look at this. This vessel is actually smaller than the size of a vessel that we need for a 50 megawatt Otec plant. Is there surviving a situation in the North Sea? You can see the parameter, 17 meters significant wave height, up to almost 30 meters wave height, 95 knot winds. And this is not routine, but this happens to them every year and they survive. So naval architects, ocean engineers tell you this plant ship will survive. We don't have to worry about that. And I would like to close by showing you something that I found in one of my drawers here. I put this together in, what was it? I think in 1989, 1990, a long, long time ago. Some of you were not even born. And that was my dream. little pin there represents a 100 megawatt plant around Oahu, for example. But then I had to put them close to be within 10 to 20 kilometers. So I selected the size just by that, basically. So you can see on the big island, I couldn't be in certain areas because I would have to be too far offshore. But now I know that there are new power cables that will allow me to do that. And in closing, one thing that I would like to mention is that I know a lot of you are interested, and so am I, with the idea of producing hydrogen or anhydrous ammonia as a source of fuel. But please keep in mind that whether I use a battery that was charged with photovoltaics or with whatever, my electric car, or a fuel cell to make electricity, just please remember that I need to make 4 units of electricity to go to the fuel cell system to make the electricity required to produce 1 kilowatt. So I need 4 kilowatt hour to produce 1 kilowatt hour for the fuel cell. So as far as I'm concerned, I only want to think about hydrogen production or NH3 production because I think about, can I go back? I forgot. Oh, this is the world that I envision. Okay, if you look in here, in the case of us here in Hawaii, I think that for land transportation, I will use electric cars, electric trucks. I can even use enough, I have enough batteries to even run the inter-island shipping. But for me to be able to connect to the world like we have to do, we import everything basically, I will need to have ships that cannot just run with batteries. They will have to use hydrogen. So the idea that I have with my dear friend CB Pancha, we're working on this right now, would be to have basically like filling stations. Let's say you go from Hawaii to the mainland, let's say, and along the line you will have to refuel your vessels that are using hydrogen to run their engines to be able to have propulsion. And the same if we go to Japan, for example. So I feel that, to me, when I hear someone telling me they want fuel cell cars for Oahu, I really go nutty because that makes no sense to me. Use batteries for your cars. Fuel cells, yes, for airplanes, and yes, for shipping to the mainland and to Asia. But we do not need to have fuel cells to run the cars. People tell me, yeah, but when I go uphill, the batteries get warm. So what? They get warm, but they still operate. So please, yes to hydrogen, but not for land transportation in Oahu. You don't need to do that. You need the hydrogen, save it for the future when we move our shipping vessels to go to the mainland and to go to Asia in our large vessels that will need to have a fuel that will not be petroleum fuel. So do it then, okay? So I will start with that. And I hope there's some questions.
Thanks, Dr. Vega, for your both covering Dr. Kim's presentation. We're still trying to get him online, but thank you for doing his presentation and also your presentation as well. I'm looking to see if we have any other questions. I had one for Dr. Ikegami. When we initially talked to you, you had some thoughts on investments at Nelha. And you thought because of the volume of water that is already available at Nelha, that there may be other opportunities for Nelha to expand into more Otec opportunities for Hawaii. If I could ask you to maybe expand on that, or maybe Ben can. I remember that coming up in some of our discussions.
Yes, thank you for your question. So I think already implementation deep sea oil intake tube in Nelha, yeah, world largest intake tube. If possible, we can demonstrate it below the 1 megawatt Otec, but maybe largest continuous operating Otec plant. So this success of the Otec project in Nelha, so promoting the commercialization from the Hawaii to the world, I think is better. I hope so. Please, Ben-san, comment.
Great. So yeah, we have Makai Ocean Engineering, both the operator and others are here on this chat, so they may want to type in. But you know, the Makai Ocean Engineering platform facility has been there since 2011, testing heat exchangers. They've done amazing work, but a lot of their funding is also from U.S. government or agencies, and when funding changes, it becomes really difficult to continue developing with there's funding challenges. So they've been doing a lot of other great work as well. And the existing intake pipeline has more water that they could use, but there's a lot of challenges as well as far as existing hurdles in terms of permitting and actually putting a facility in and having, to get all of that going in Hawaii where there are high personnel costs and things like that. So if they have a different view, please, I hope they'll join in. But from my perspective, I think an additional onshore Otec facility in Hawaii would be a challenge. Even though there's existing resources, it could be a good place to scale up and add to NELHA's renewable energy portfolio. But it may make sense to do a first offshore facility in NELHA waters because they do have that pre-permitting area. It's already there. We could probably accelerate, but it may make sense to do like an offshore facility. But I mean, obviously, NELHA needs more renewable energy. It may make sense to do like a multi-megawatt facility, but it'll be expensive. And I think that's the issues that NELHA's had in the past, where they have to run like a business, and so that they want cheap energy at the pre-commercial stage. And the only way to do that is with massive amount, well, not massive, but a significant amount of subsidy. So if the national government or some other organization is willing to put that subsidy in to help move that forward, that's one way that could happen. Again, if maybe Herman would like to jump in, or Michael, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I can chime in and talk about our challenges with converting the current NELHA system. We looked at that and wanted to develop some sort of a demonstration plant at the 55-inch station. And one of our major problems was that, incidentally, the location of the pump station is about 10 to 13 feet above sea level. And you would be really surprised how much energy that actually requires to lift the water to that position. And one option is to operate as a siphon where we have a discharge that goes directly back into the ocean. But due to permitting, we're not allowed to discharge directly into the seawater, into the ocean, to maintain that or to eliminate the lifting component. And so we have to lift it to 10 feet, and that's a non-trivial amount of energy. That's sort of a parasitic load from the generated power. And then furthermore, once it's on land, we need to do something with it. And digging a large trench is not really practical because there's a lot of water. And I think 27,000 gallons per minute is the current, or about 2 cubic meters per second. That's about the limit of the pipe that's there. And so the trench doesn't really work. And the only option that we had available to us was to drill injection wells. And so with injection wells, you typically have a 24-inch diameter well that's maybe 200 feet deep, and it's somewhat porous down there. So as you're injecting it, it's going to feed down and then eventually back into the ocean, filtered through the rock. But the cost of those almost makes the project sort of insurmountable. And so it's really just not practical to do it there without a subsidy. And I mean, it would be an interesting project to just demonstrate on a larger scale and to prove out the heat exchangers and to show that the biofouling can be dealt with. So it's always been our position that doing a demonstration offshore is the most suitable method, of moving forward. Because there's really just so much water to deal with, and it's best to be in the ocean when you're doing that. And you also really need to minimize, you know, just to give you a practical perspective from an engineer, you know, it's every little bit matters when you look at the Otec system, and you can't necessarily just look at one component and try and improve that. You have to look at the system as a whole, and you know, making a little bit of efficiency improvement in each area is essential, really. And so there's not much room for making mistakes in the Otec system. You got to take advantage of every little bit of efficiency in order to make it as cheap as possible, essentially. And, you know, it is, quite frankly, I mean, just to be honest, it is a struggle to make it an efficient system, efficient and economical, you know, and because we're in the world of cheap energy these days, and we can just continue, you know, burning oil, and that's not very good for our planet, but that's what people are choosing to do. And so until we have some sort of a strong regulation against consuming oil, that will increase the prices, and then Otec will become more advantageous. And the other thing is, and you know, Luis made some great points about the economics of the larger systems, and that's absolutely true. I mean, as we get larger in total system size, the costs essentially go down. The cost of electricity will go down, but at the same time, we're increasing our risk. So, you know, the risk of some failure happening, or the risk of, you know, some small efficiency change having an impact on the total economics of the whole system. And so to date, no one has really come forward and said, okay, I'm going to take the first leap and put the $1 billion down for this massive Otec system and see if it works. So it's been our effort to try to, you know, tackle the problem of just, let's try to make some smaller system at least marginally economical, knowing that when we go to a larger size, that will improve. But even that is a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael, thanks for your feedback on that. I appreciate it. We're kind of hitting our hour-and-a-half point here. And thanks to Ben and Dr. Jima for looking at that. Can we get Dr. Vega to stop sharing screen so we can see the rest of the participants? We're still trying to get Dr. Kim on here for a few last word minutes. I had one more question come up in chat from regarding Guam as a transport fueling station for ships and planes. And that's a definite yes. Hawaii and Guam are both locations where aviation transportation in particular has to unload fuel, because they can't be carrying return fuel for long range. Eugene Tian is still on, and I'd like to squeeze him in before we have to sign off. So Eugene, if you're ready, let's rock and roll.
Yes, I'm ready. Let me go over my presentation. I have only a few slides. If you see my slides, Stan, let me know.
You're good.
Okay, so I got an assignment talking about the cost side of the electricity. So with that assignment, I read a few literatures. I will report to you what I found. So Hawaii's electricity generation, this is by source. You can see in 1990, we used 90% oil and down to 67.7%. The renewable by 2020 is 19.3%. This is not including the customer-sided, the rooftop PV. Actually, our renewable portfolio standard was about 30% in 2019 and increased to 40% in 2021. Just that 2 years increased by about 10 percentage points. So the goal is actually 40% by 2030. So we are ahead of schedule. So look at this number. Our electricity price is actually high. I think it's highest in the nation. You can see that is approaching 35 cents per kilowatt hours. And why it is increasing? So I look at the correlation between the petroleum price, mainly is crude oil price. It's very highly correlated. The correlation coefficient is 0.9. So 0.8 is considered to be significant. So 0.9. And look at the percentage of the renewables we use, this is for utility scale, is about 20%. So with the increase in the renewables, increase the electricity, but it's not significant. So the coefficient is 0.67, which is below 0.8. I look at the measure most popular in the world. How do they people measure the cost of electricity generation? So the measure is called LCOE, is called levelize the cost of energy. So this is including, you can see the component, including the initial investment, including the maintenance, the fuel use, and how many years for the investment, and the total electricity generated over the lifetime. So this is, we can compare with this formula, we can compare with the different technology, either it is wind, thermal, or PV. So let me give you some numbers. This is from actually the International Renewable Energy Agency. They actually have calculated, this is for world, it's not only for the US, it's worldwide, for how it would be different. So you can see that in 2021, it's from the highest to the lowest. Not in this order, but the highest will be the concentrated solar power. It is about 11.4 cents per kilowatt hours. And the cheapest one, I believe, is this onshore wind. So it has been declining is because of the investment, initial investment, the materials, equipment has been becoming cheaper. So I think the expensive one will be those, I think this geothermal bioenergy is higher than those PVs. And this one is from the EIA, is Energy Information Administration. This is for the US. So you can see that the cost per kilowatt hours, this is cost per kilowatt hours, is actually the highest, the higher one will be in the coal, in the nuclear, and also this combustion turbine. This is mainly is the for the fuel generating electricity. But we do have some literature. Mostly, I think they said Hawaii's facility. They did calculate for Otec, and I think the number cited in the report is about 20 cents per kilowatt hours. So this is looking at the whole life for this investment and how much they will generate. And the calculation is 20 cents. I think the earlier presenter, Ben and Louis, also talking about the 20 cents. I think maybe this is where the source coming from. I mean, the study may be coming from those Hawaii observations. And this, the next slide I have is the cost calculated in the previous formula. You can see that it doesn't include the externality. But economists are always calculating the cost, including those social costs, which we call the externality, and including air pollution, climate change, all these, the accident, and those kind of things. But there are professors from South Korea, from UK, from Switzerland. They calculated those. This is externality cost. So it's cost beyond generating the electricity. So you can see that I think I ranked them by the highest cost with coal. And as Scott mentioned that, I think we stopped the coal and oil, they were on the top. I think the lower part is geothermal is the lowest in terms of impact on the other sectors. We call the spillover cost. I think this concludes my report on the cost side. Thank you.
Hey, Eugene, and thank you. And just because you're not first on the speaking list doesn't mean you're not my favorite economist. You're still my favorite economist. So thank you for being patient with us. Dr. Kim finally broke the code, and I ended up being able to shut him the new link in. So Dr. Kim, Luis Vega already gave your presentation. He did a pretty admirable job, but we'd like to give you a few minutes to just talk a little bit here. So the stage is yours. I don't know if he can hear me. Dr. Kim, you're on mute, but you can chime in anytime.
Hello, this is Hyunju Kim from Korea. I'm sorry too late to join this webinar. Thank you very much for your supporting my join to this magnificent webinar. And may I start to introduction of Korean Otec activity from now on?
Yeah, we're just going to keep pressing. We're a little bit over time, but go ahead and show your slides. So you can pull your slides up and start sharing.
How can I upload my presentation file onto this screen?
You just pull it up on your desktop, and then
Yes.
on your Zoom screen, in the green in the bottom says share screen.
Okay.
Click that one, and then select the slide, the desktop item you want to share with everybody. Just click on that, and then click on the thing that says share, and it should pop up here in a few seconds.
Sorry, but I'm not familiar to use
I know.
Zoom webinar system. Yes, I will try to find.
There you go. You're
Can you see this my PowerPoint file?
we see the your basically that you selected Otec 1000 introduction for Hawaii rebuild. So you probably have to go to your desktop, and once that opens, select it and go share again, and it should. In fact, you may have to stop sharing this one and start sharing the actual PowerPoint when it comes up. I'm glad you lived in Hawaii for a while so that you could understand me. I don't speak very good Korean.
And can you see my presentation file from your screen?
It's still showing your where you selected that file. You may have to stop sharing with that one and start sharing with your presentation again.
Dr. Kim, do you want me to share for you? I can share the slides you sent earlier.
Yeah. I think he's almost there.
If you can upload my PDF file of a presentation, I can explain.
Okay.
By supported by your
so just hit
and manage my file.
Hit stop share on your computer, and Ben can bring up your presentation on his. He's probably already got it pulled up. Otherwise, I can try to do that. There we go.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Moderate, and aloha. I am Hyunju Kim from KRISO, Korea Institute of Ships and Ocean Engineering. And I was project manager of a Korean Otec program for 11 years since 2010 until last month. It is very nice meeting you here in Renew and Rebuild Hawaii. Today, I'm going to introduce current status of Otec 1000 and to discuss a future plan for utilization in Pacific Island countries. As you know, we Korean Otec team was one of the fast followers in the world. And I have assisted by Dr. Luis Vega and Professor Ikegami and University of Hawaii since 2008, while I stayed there for 1 year's sabbatical leave. Please, next page. Let me start to overview the Otec history and current status. After suggested the principle of Otec by Professor Dalsomber in 1881, the first demonstration was tried by French scientist Dr. Claude, recorded at 22 kilowatt in 1930. There are lots of efforts to demonstrate Otec pilot plants by United States, French, India, etc. The maximum output from Otec plant was in 20th century was 210 kilowatt, but by Dr. Luis Vega's experiment in Hawaii. Until now, the maximum output was demonstrated at 338 kilowatt in Korean East Sea by Korean Otec team in 2019. I will introduce the detail on K-Otec 20 and 1000 today. Next, please. According to online survey by Otec, Chris Otec team, work with the IEA OES, there are lots of efforts to realize Otec commercialization in the world. As shown in this slide, there are 20 Otec projects under ongoing or planned in tropical belt from 20 degrees south to north latitudes, known as 44,000 terawatt hour of potential electricity. Among them, you can see 5 representative Otec projects from French, Korea, Japan, Hawaii, and Korea. Please, next slide. Okay. How these efforts make sure to commercialize Otec plant in the near future? LCOE will be the best, most meaningful indicate in the viewpoint of energy market. In 2015, IEA OES had published LCOE of marine renewable energies of wave, tidal current, and Otec plants. They are ranged from 50 cents to 65 cents per kilowatt hour, and it will be acceptable to small island countries in developing states rather than developed countries. As you can see, the price of electricity in Pacific Island countries were ranged from 40 to 160 cents per kilowatt hour. And LCOE of K-Otec 1000 was estimated at 39 cents per kilowatt hour to 38 cents per kilowatt hour. Where cold pipe is very short and sea state is very calm without typhoon attack in Kiribati. And we hope to support industrial sectors to achieve 20 cents per kilowatt hour by 10 megawatt Otec plant and 9 cents per kilowatt hour by 100 megawatt Otec plant based on this current R&D activities. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Can 15 cents per kilowatt hour of Otec LCOE from 100 megawatt power plant be accepted in the energy market? For commercialization of Otec plant, the LCOE have to be competitive to other renewable energy at the objective region. Average PPA of PV plus ESS in the United States during 2018 to 2021 was only 3.2 cents per kilowatt hour. It is 1/3 of Otec LCOE of 100 megawatt scale. But capex of PV ESS for continuous electric power supply will be 6 to 10 times cost in remote island or off-grid system. This shows target cost reduction curve and LCOE estimates of wave and current by IRENA, and we Korean Otec team have override Otec expectation onto it. As you can see, when 2 gigawatt capacity of a marine energy facility is distributed, LCOE will be lowered to 10 cents per kilowatt hour, and Otec can be also expected to as to do. Next, please. To secure relative economics for commercialization of Otec plant, we have to do our best to reduce cost and to maximize benefit as below. Cost reduction of system and core equipment have to be studied. It will be achieved by industry sectors by scale of economy. And enhancement of system efficiency and minimization of peristaltic loss are tried. And carbon neutralization, progressive response on climate change should be included in. Then we can apply carbon credit of $20 to $100 per 1 ton of carbon dioxide for LCOE estimation. And finally, multi-purpose use of Otec and DOWA for cost distribution and cost sharing can be expected. Next, please. Now, let me talk about R&D status and future plan of a Korean Otec program. In order to develop megawatt Otec plants, we carried out basic study with a small pilot plant and studied a lot for performance enhancement. By analyzing and designing with a large of Otec cycle, this 20 kilowatt Otec pilot plant was manufactured on simple Rankine cycle in 2013. After this, all key components such as turbine generate, separate, and condense and evaporate and so on have been designed and developed by Korean Otec team. Next, please. We have manufactured the key components of turbine generator, condense, evaporate, and so on for 1 megawatt Otec plant since 2016. You can see the key components mounted on this Otec bars, intaking pipe, drain pipe, and evaporator and condense and turbine generate on green colored on the skid and so on. And finally, we assembled all key components of a 1 megawatt Otec plant on the Otec base in August 2019, before International Otec Symposium in 2019 held in Busan. It was towed to Pohang offshore for installation of a mooring system, and riser system was installed through the moonpool of this Otec base between two typhoons approaching. From this field test, output of Otec plant was recorded at 338 kilowatt in gross power. At that time, the temperature difference between surface and deep waters was 18.7 degrees Celsius. Next, please. We also tried to design feasible Otec platform. Basically, we considered 3 types of platforms for different external force environment with latitude. This rectangular base was designed for 0 to 20 degree in latitude, and this 7 type was for 0 to 20 degree latitude, and this spot type for 0 to 30 degree latitude for application of Otec mounted on the Otec platform. We experimented the stability of this Otec platform through computer simulation and model test in wave tank. Next, please. Thank you. When COVID-19 is ended, we hope to transport and install this 1 megawatt Otec plant at Tarawa Beach as on-land type, and establish a KSDGS model in Kiribati using Otec plant in the future. For that, we established the SSUA program named Sustainable Seawater Utilization Academy in 2016, and run this program to strengthen regional capacity for Otec application and downstream utilization for energy, water, and food. During 2018 to 2020, and many volunteers from Fiji and Hawaii, as well as Korea, had participated in these activities of SSUA program. Next, please. This program includes Otec and cascade use for hydrogen economy, as well as SDGs support for small island countries in developing state. Recently, we carried out feasibility study of Otec H2, and we are discussing it with the industry to adopt advanced electrolysis system. This is one of a future plan to produce hydrogen and ammonia by Otec power and desalted freshwater for hydrogen era for carbon-free island. Okay, let me wrap up my today's presentation. I wish this humble introduction could give you some insight for Renew and Rebuild Hawaii. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Dr. Kim, thank you very much. I'm sorry it took so much effort to try and get you in here. We probably should work on that to make it easier for our guests in the future, but thank you for your patience and thank you for your presentation. I'd like
Thank
to,
you for your support. Yes.
and I'm going to turn it over to Michael Markrich, the head of Renew-Rebuild Hawaii, for final words. And thanks to everybody for hanging in. And if you're in Honolulu, it's the 40th Okinawa Hawaii Festival. So get downtown and have some handagi or something. Michael, all yours.
All right, thank you. I want to thank all of our great speakers who came from Japan and Korea and Okinawa and Hawaii, and thank you for all of you. We even have somebody from Tobago today, from all parts of the world, and I think what's happening is we're looking at the future, and we're getting a good glimpse of it. And so thank you all for being here with us today and giving us this view of the world to come. And until the next time, aloha, and thank you for Renew Rebuild Hawaii.
Thanks, everyone. Aloha.